Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let's continue my next presentation. Dark matter concept. Considering your comments in the previous presentation and the private communication with Harry Ricker, I researched the concept of dark matter and came to the point that this concept is not exactly what I mean about new kind of matter in frames of world-universe model. In whom dark matter is not dark at all. It was dark 240 years ago when Mitchell proposed dark stars and astronomers had only telescopes. They observed the sky with their eyes only. For them, dark stars were dark. The first known binary system was Cygnus X1, that is typically the brightest persistent source of hard X-rays with energies up to 60 kiloelectron volts. In 2000, Minchin et al. Discovered binary galaxy system Virgo HI21 with NGC 4254, which has the 21 centimeter emission. They are not dark because the contemporary astronomy allows us to observe the sky in wavelengths from radio waves up to gamma rays. In my previous presentations, I followed the standard paradigm dark matter that is not quite right for room, in which the world consists of particles of ordinary matter, protons, electrons, photons, and neutrinos. On the other hand, there are particles created by the universe, universe-created particles of a new kind of universe-created matter, which have following characteristics: fermions or bosons, rest energies covering 18 orders of magnitude, weak interaction, and self-annihilation like Majorana fermions. Ordinary particles are a byproduct of UC particles self-annihilation. It is easy to switch from dark D matter to universe-created UC matter. In whom the nucleus of the world 4D ball is expanding in the fourth spatial dimension with speed c, gravitodynamic constant, and the world 3D hypersphere is stretching. The eternal universe is the creator of UC matter in 4D nucleus. UC particles carry new UC matter into the world. It is important to emphasize that continuous creation of matter is a direct consequence of the nucleus expansion. Creation of UC matter occurs homogeneously in all points of hypersphere world. Worm is not like the old steady-state theory, in which the density of matter in the expanding universe remains unchanged due to a continuous creation of matter. In whom the density of matter is going down inversely proportional to cosmological time. The world consists of medium and macro objects. Medium is some kind of ether made of ordinary particles and UC particles with very low density, about 10 to the minus 26 kilogram per cubic meter in present epoch. Total density of the world equals to a critical energy density throughout the world's evolution. It provides a flatness of the world. The energy density of medium is 2/3 of the total energy density, and macro objects, superclusters, galaxies, extrasolar system, 1/3 in all cosmological times. Relative energy density of UC particles is about 92.8%. And ordinary particles about 4.8% in the medium and 2.4% in macro objects. I stress that the content of all particles is the same in the medium and macro objects. But in the medium, the density of them is the same. The medium is homogeneous. And in macro objects, there are cores made of UC fermions and shells of all other particles around them, like hills. Introduction. According to Wikipedia, solar system is gravitationally bound system of the sun and the objects that orbit it. It formed 4.57 billion years ago. The vast majority of solar system mass is in the sun, with most of the remaining mass contained in Jupiter. The four inner system planets, Mercury, Venus, the Earth, and Mars, are terrestrial planets. The four giant planets of the outer system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are substantially larger than the terrestrials. All eight planets have nearly circular orbits that lie near the plane of Earth's orbit, called the ecliptic. There are unknown number of smaller dwarf planets and innumerable small solar system bodies orbiting the Sun. Six largest possible dwarf planets and many of the smaller bodies are orbited by natural satellites commonly called moons after Earth's moon. Asteroid belt, which lies between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, contains objects composed of rock, metal, and ice. About 60% of the main belt mass is contained in the four largest asteroids, Ceres, Vesta, Pallas, and Hygiea. The total mass of the asteroid belt is about 3% that of the Moon. Beyond Neptune's orbit lie the Kuiper belt, that is a circumstellar disk in the outer solar system, extending from the orbit of Neptune at 30 astronomical units to approximately 50 astronomical units from the Sun. Most Kuiper belt objects are composed largely of frozen volatiles such as methane, ammonia, and water. The Kuiper belt is home to most of the objects that astronomers generally accept as dwarf planets: Makemake, Orcus, Pluto, Haumea, Quaoar. The total mass of Kuiper belt is about 1/100 of Earth's mass. Trans-Neptunian objects are any minor planets in the solar system that orbits the Sun at a greater average distance than Neptune. The first discovered in 1930 was Pluto. The most massive known is Eris, followed by Pluto, Haumea, Makemake, and Gong. More than 80 satellites have been discovered in orbit of trans-Neptunian objects. 12 minor planets with a semi-major axis greater than 150 astronomical units and perihelion greater than 30 astronomical units are known, which are called extreme trans-Neptunian objects. Oort cloud is a theoretical concept of a cloud of predominantly icy planetesimals proposed to surround the Sun at distances ranging from 1,000 to 100,000 astronomical units. It is divided in two regions: a disk-shaped inner Oort cloud and spherical outer Oort cloud. Both regions lie beyond heliosphere and are in interstellar space. The inner cloud is a vast theoretical circumstellar disk whose outer border would be located at around 20,000 astronomical units from the Sun. The outer edge of the outer cloud might be about 100,000 astronomical units from the Sun. Its total mass is not known, but roughly the combined mass is 5 times that of Earth. No known estimates of the mass of the inner Oort cloud have been published. Astronomers conjecture that the matter composing the Oort cloud formed closer to the Sun and was scattered far into space by the gravitational effects of giant planets early in solar system evolution. There are two main classes of comets: short period comets, called ecliptic comets, and long-period comets, called nearly isotropic comets. Ecliptic comets have relatively small orbits below 10 astronomical units and follow the ecliptic plane, the same plane in which the planets lie. All long-period comets have very large orbits, thousands of astronomical units, and appear from every direction in the sky. Facts about planets and moons. According to Evolution Encyclopedia, there are the following facts that do not fit into any evolutionary theory of how our solar system came into existence. A full 99.5% of all angular momentum in the solar system is concentrated in the planets. Yet a staggering 99.8% of all mass in our solar system is located in our sun. Jupiter itself had 60% of the planetary angular motion. This strange distribution was the primary cause of the downfall of the nebular hypothesis. 290 years old and nothing new. Both Uranus and Venus rotate backwards to that of all the other planets. Why then does Venus rotate slowly backwards and Uranus rotate at a 98-degree angle from its orbital plane? One third of 60 moons in our solar system have retrograde backward orbits, which are the opposite of the rotational direction of their respective planets. There are such striking differences between planets and planets, planets and moons, moons and moons. If they all came from the same gas clouds, they should all be alike. Solar system and moon. Let us consider rotational and orbital angular momentum of all gravitationally rounded objects in solar system from Mimas, a small moon of Saturn with mass about 10 to the power 19 kilogram, to the sun itself. We calculate their angular momentum in the present epoch. See Table 1. Table 1, value of rotational and orbital angular momentum of gravitational round objects in solar system. These are the planets, these are the moons, this is their rotational angular momentum, this is orbital momentum. Nobody done this table before myself. From the point of view of rotational fission model, the prime object is transferring some of its rotational momentum to orbital momentum of the satellite. It follows that rotational momentum of the prime object should exceed the orbital momentum of the satellite. From table 1, we see that the orbital momenta of most satellites are indeed substantially smaller than the rotational momenta of their prime objects, with three exceptions. The rotational momentum of the Sun is smaller than Jupiter, Saturn's, Uranus, and Neptune's orbital momentum. The rotational momentum of the Earth is substantially smaller than Moon's orbital momentum. The rotational momentum of Pluto is considerably smaller than Charon's orbital momentum. Considering that Jupiter's orbital momentum is about 60% of the total angular momentum of solar system, we obtain this value for the total rotational angular momentum of solar system. Let's calculate parameters of the overspinning speed at equator exceeding escape velocity, Sun's core, necessary to provide this angular momentum. Considering mass of Sun 2 multiplied 10 to the power 30 kilograms, radius about 0.7 million kilometers, we obtain this value, which is 3.3 times greater than the total rotational angular momentum. It follows that the Sun's core can be smaller. Let us consider the structure of the Sun. According to the standard solar model, it has core that extends from the center to about 20-25% of the solar radius, contains 34% of the Sun's mass, with density rho maximum 150 and rho minimum 20,000 kilogram per cubic meter. It produces all Sun's energy. Radiative zone from the core to about 70% of the solar radius with density rho maximum 20 and rho minimum 0.2 thousandths kilogram per cubic meter, in which convection does not occur and energy transfer occurs by radiation. Core and radiative zone contain practically all Sun's mass. In our opinion, the Sun has an inner core nucleus made up of UCF1 with rest energy 1.3 teraelectron volts, whose radius is 20-25% of the solar radius, and an outer core made up of UCM, the relative zone, the radiative zone. We then calculate the overspinning solar core rotational angular momentum before rotational fission and found that it is 2.8 times larger than overall angular momentum of solar system. The large power output of the Sun is mainly due to the huge size and density of its core compared to the Earth, with only a fairly small amount of power being generated per cubic meter. Theoretical models of the Sun's interior indicate a maximum power density of approximately 276.5 watts per cubic meter at the center of the core, which is about the same power density inside a compost pile and closer approximates reptile metabolism than a thermonuclear bomb. Let's follow the same procedure for Earth-Moon pair. Considering the mass of Earth and radius, we calculate rotational angular momentum of Earth that is 2.3 times larger than the Moon's orbital momentum. Let us look at the structure of the Earth. According to standard model, it has an inner core and outer core that extend from the center to about 45% of the Earth's radius, with density rho maximum 13 and rho minimum 9.9 thousand kilogram per cubic meter. Lower mantle spanning from the outer core to about 90% of the Earth's radius, below 660 kilometers, with density rho maximum 5.6 and rho minimum 4.4 thousandths kilogram per cubic meter. Inner core, outer core, and lower mantle contain practically all of the Earth's mass. Very little is known about the lower mantle apart from that it appears to be relatively seismically homogeneous. Outer core, lower mantle boundary has sharp drop of density. It's very important, from 9.9 to 5.6 thousandths kilogram per cubic meter. In our opinion, lower mantle is part of the Earth's core. It could be significantly different 4.57 billion years ago, since during this time it was gradually filled with all chemical elements produced by Earth's core due to UCF1 1.3 teraelectron volt self-annihilation. Considering the Earth's core with radius 5.7 thousandths kilometers, the rotational angular momentum equals to this value, which is 2.2 times larger than the orbital momentum of the Moon. As for the Pluto-Charon pair, it is definitely a binary system. Charon was not generated by Pluto's core. Instead, they are two objects that happened to be bounded together by gravity. Mysteries of Solar System. According to Ellen Stone, editor-in-chief at Little Astronomy, these mysteries are: why does Venus spin backwards? All the planets in solar system rotate in the same direction except one, Venus. If you could look at all the planets from a point at the top of the North Pole, you would see all of them rotating counterclockwise, but not Venus, that is spinning clockwise. Astronomers have two theories to explain why that happens. One of them is Venus could have suffered a huge impact with another object. That collision would have been so powerful it changed the direction of Venus' rotational movement. The second theory is Venus is so close to the Sun and its atmosphere is so dense that gravitational pull from the Sun created tides that flipped the planet's axis 180 degrees. Can you believe it? Why is Uranus tilted sideways? Something very curious happens with Uranus rotation. It seems like the planet is on its side if you compare it to the other planets in the solar system, while the rotational axis of the other planets is mostly perpendicular to the directions of the Sun. Uranus' axis is tilted and almost pointing to the star, making the planet look like it is rotating on its side. It is possible at some point in its history, a huge object impacted Uranus and changed the direction of its axis. Some theories suggest that very same impact created most of all of its 27 moons. Unbelievable. Boom. In our view, explanations of system mysteries, Venus spinning backwards, Uranus tilted sideways, moon creation, Mars hit by a giant cosmic lightning bolt, planets difference in composition based on the impact theory are unrealistic and were proposed from hopelessness in frames of standard model. To the best of our knowledge, in literature, it was never discussed and explained a real picture of planets' angular momentum. We will see it on figure 1 and table 2. Why do the Sun and all planets have different orientations of their motion being created from the same nebula with a certain amount of angular momentum? Where it came from, nobody knows. Figure 1, orientation of the motion of solar system objects. Let me put attention to the North Galactic Pole. The North Galactic Pole, look, the direction of this and that, and North Galactic Pole, celestial pole. Why they're so much different? Why angle of galactic much different from solar and Earth pole? Table 2, angular momentum of gravitational rounded objects of solar system. There are two parameters, inclination in degrees, and you can see the variation of inclination from planet to planet, and axial tilt, that is huge difference from 0 to about 98%. In astronomy, axial tilt in the angle between an object's rotational axis and its orbital axis, which is the perpendicular to its orbital plane. Equivalently, it is the angle between its equatorial plane and orbital plane. It differs from the orbital inclination, that is the tilt of an object's orbit around a celestial body. It is expressed as the angle between a reference plane and the orbital plane of axis or direction of the beginning of orbiting object. The ecliptic plane is the orbital plane on Earth of Earth around the Sun. The galactic plane is the plane on which the majority of a disk-shaped galaxy mass lies. The directions perpendicular to the galactic plane point to the galactic poles. To with the law of conservation of angular momentum, we developed our model in which big angle between galactic pole and ecliptic pole is due to the random volcanic rotational fission of Milky Way UCMM core of many extrasolar systems UCM cores at the same time. So the direction of the sum of all extrasolar systems angular momentum coincide with the direction of galactic poles. The same explanation is valid for the sun's UCM core and UCM core for the planets with moons, considering that they were created at the same time 4.57 billion years ago. Why is the sun's atmosphere hotter than its surface? One of the bigger and most counterintuitive mysteries of the solar system, for which we have not been able to find answers, is why is the outer layer of the sun's atmosphere hotter than the surface of the star? The sun is composed of multiple layers. The visible source of the surface of the part we can see is called the photosphere and burns at a temperature of about 5700 K. On top of that, the sun also has an atmosphere, and the outermost part of it is called the corona. One would think that being separated from the surface, the heat would start to dissipate, and the temperature of the coronal would be lower than on the surface. Well, this is not the case. In fact, it is the extreme opposite, as the temperature in the corona can reach million degrees K. Some theories have been formed as to why this happens, that have to do with the ionization of helium in the atmosphere, but we don't know for sure. In boom, solar corona is an aura of plasma that surrounds the sun and extends at least 8 million kilometers into outer space. Sun's radius is 0.7 million kilometers. Spectroscopy measurements indicate strong ionization and plasma temperature over a million degrees K. Corona emits radiation mainly in X-rays, observable only from outer space. Plasma is transparent to its own radiation and to solar radiation passing through it. Coronal heating problem in solar physics relates to the question of why the temperature of the solar corona is millions of degrees higher than that of the photosphere. The high temperatures require energy to be carried from the solar interior to the corona by a non-thermal process. In our opinion, the origin of the solar corona plasma is not coronal heating. Plasma particles, electrons, protons, multi-charge ions, are so far apart that plasma temperature, in the usual sense, is not very meaningful. Plasma particles are the result of self-annihilation of UC particles, in whom solar corona made up of UC particles resembles a honeycomb filled with plasma particles. Geocorona and planetary coronas possess features like those of solar corona. The following experimental results speak in favor of this model. Corona emits radiation mainly in X-rays due to self-annihilation of UC fermions UCF3 with 3.7 kiloelectron volts rest energy. The elemental composition of the solar corona and the solar photosphere are known to differ. During the impulsive stage of solar flares, hot X-rays and gamma rays with energy about 100 gigaelectron volts are emitted. One gamma quant had an energy as high as 467.7 gigaelectron volts. In our view, it is the result of enormous density fluctuations of particles UCF1, 1.3 teraelectron volts in the solar corona and their self-annihilation. These fluctuations, named coronal mass ejections, originate from the random volcanic activity of the sun's UCM core. Most powerful solar flares have coronal mass ejections. How many unknown dwarf planets are out there? Our telescopes have been getting better really fast in the last few decades. With all these advancements, we started to find a lot of objects in solar system we didn't know about. This led to the creation of the dwarf planet category to label all these objects that did not really meet the criteria to be called a planet, but were pretty close. The International Astronomical Union has officially recognized 5 dwarf planets so far, including Pluto, but there are at least 30 other objects that have been proposed by multiple astronomers that they will be studied further in the coming years to see if they meet the criteria. Most of these dwarf planets would be located in the area known as the Kuiper belt, beyond the orbit of Neptune. Some astronomers believe there might be up to 200 dwarf planets out there waiting to be found. In my model, from physical point of view, all gravitationally rounded objects in solar system, from Mimas, a small moon of Saturn, to the Sun, are macro objects with UCM cores inside of them that are USM reactors. It includes stars, planets, dwarf planets, and moons that are bigger than Mimas. Considering the total mass of the Kuiper belt, about 1/100th of Earth's mass, we can evaluate a number of macro objects. It's about 10 to the power 3, about 1,000. So there might be up to 200 dwarf planets in the Kuiper belt as it was hypothesized. Does the Oort cloud exist? Have you ever wondered where do comets come from? To solve that question, astronomers have theorized that a group of millions and maybe billions of small icy rocky objects exist on the outer limits of the solar system. These objects form a huge cloud named the Oort cloud after one of the astronomers who proposed it. Sometimes these objects will be shot out of the Oort cloud due to the collisions of gravitational forces and become wandering comets. The objects in the Oort cloud are too small and far away to reflect any light from the sun, so their existence is still not confirmed. Boom. In our opinion, observations of short-period ecliptic comets and long-period isotropic comets are experimental confirmation of the Oort cloud existence. In whom ecliptic comets were produced by the sun itself as the result of volcanic rotational fission of the sun's UCM core. Nearly isotropic comets were produced by giant planets, which are in fact failed stars with different directions of rotational axis as the result of volcanic rotational fission of their UCM cores. Take a look at table 1. Or cloud belongs to solar system. How was the moon created? One of the things that says a lot about how little we still know about our universe is the fact we don't even know for sure how our own moon was formed. The current theory most astronomers agree on is that at some point early in the solar system's life, a planet around the size of Mars crashed against Earth. This collision left a lot of debris and pieces of both planets hanging around but still trapped by Earth's gravity and were left orbiting it. After millions of years, all these pieces came together thanks to gravity and formed the moon. While the theory is widely accepted, it leaves some questions up in the air, like why was not Earth taken out of its orbit by this impact? And what happened to the other hypothetical planet? In whom the moon is a differentiated body being composed of geochemically distinct crust, mantle, and planetary core. Moonquakes have been found to occur deep within the mantle of the moon, about 1,000 kilometers below the surface. The size of the lunar core is only about 20% size of the moon itself, is in contrast to about 50% as is the case for most other terrestrial bodies. In February 2022, astronomers used NASA's Sophia telescope to scan an immense region near the south pole of the moon and revealed an abundance of water trapped on the shady sides of mountains and in the shadowed parts of craters. In whom the internal structure of the moon can be explained the same way as it was done for the Earth and Mars. It is worth noting that UCM core of the moon is much less than UCM core of the Earth. This result is in good agreement with the proposed by whom mechanism of the moon creation. UCM core of the moon was born as the result of volcanic rotational fission of the Earth's UCM core 4.57 billion years ago. Did Mars have oceans in the past? For years, astronomers have found evidence of erosion, channels, and canyons on Mars. As far as we know, all of those are caused by liquid water slowly forming them. From that data, we can hypothesize that at some point in the past, Mars has liquid water running on the planet. Some astronomers think even one-third of the Martian surface could have been covered in water. Some scientists believe even today it would be possible for water to exist under Mars' surface, where it is safe from many of the effects that would have caused the surface to disappear. The more we explore and study Mars, the more this theory seems correct, but that opens other questions. What happened to Mars that made all that water evaporate or freeze? Could there have been life on the red planet at some point? Boom. The proposed concept of UCM reactors in cause of all gravitational rounded marker objects successfully explains all contemporary hypotheses and results for the early Earth. In the paper Uncovering Mysteries of Earth's Primeval Atmosphere 4.5 billion years ago and the Emergence of Life, a leading scientist Saucy wrote, 4.5 billion years ago, Earth would have been hard to recognize. Instead of the forests, mountains, and oceans that we know today, the surface of our planet was covered entirely by magma, the molten rocky material that emerges when volcanoes erupt. This much the scientific community agrees on. What is less clear is what the atmosphere at the time was like. In whom upper mantle with crust are due to the UCM core volcanic activity of the homemade compositions, including magma, which produced as the result of the self-annihilation of UC particles in the UCM core. It explains the result that continental crust had formed by 4.4, 4.5 billion years ago. According to Learning Earth Science, scientists have developed a number of hypotheses about how the oceans formed. Though these hypotheses have changed over time, one idea now has the wide support of Earth scientists, called the volcanic outgassing theory. This means that water vapor given off by volcanoes erupting over millions or billions of years cooled and condensed to form Earth's oceans. In whom Earth's atmosphere and oceans were formed by the volcanic activity and outgassing of USM core. In our opinion, analogous processes happened on early Mars too. But because of much less size of USM core and mass of Mars, in comparison with the Earth, the rate of creation of Mars atmosphere and oceans and the forces of gravity preventing the water from leaving the planet are much less than it is for the Earth. So, water evaporated from the surface of Mars. We believe that there is an underground water on Mars. Was Mars hit by a giant cosmic lightning bolt? There is a huge, strange canyon on Mars called Valles Marineris. Just to give you an idea of how big it is about 4 times deeper and 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon in Arizona. But its weirdness only starts there. Some scientists believe this canyon was not formed in a traditional way, water slowly eroding the land over the course of millions of years, but in a much cooler manner. They believe Valles Marineris is a scar. For years, scientists have theorized the existence of cosmic lightning bolts. Imagine a lightning bolt, but on a cosmic scale, traveling across the cosmos with unimaginable amounts of energy. Then imagine this bolt hits a planet, let's say Mars. The impact would be big enough to leave a mark forever on the planet and create a valley the size of Valles Marineris. One more piece of evidence that could support the lightning bolt theory is that Mars also has a hole in its atmosphere that is leaking hydrogen into space. Could this hole have been created by that very same impact? Is that the reason Mars lost its ocean? Boom! In our view, a giant cosmic lightning bolt and Valles Marineris is a scar on the Mars surface are unimaginable. Some of the most notable surface features on Mars include Olympus Mons, the largest volcano and highest known mountain in solar system, and Valles Marineris, one of the largest canyons in solar system. Mars is seismically active. In 2019, it was reported that InSight had detected and recorded over 450 Mars quakes and related events. In 2021, it was reported that the core of Mars was indeed liquid and had a radius of about 1830 kilometers and a temperature around 2000 degrees K. In womb, the Martian core is a liquid UCM core with very high viscosity that functions as a solid state object. It is a UCM reactor that provides enough energy for volcanic and plate tectonic activities. As the result, there were created Olympus Mons and Valles Marineris. Why are the planets so different in composition? Most astronomers agree on the origin of solar system. They believed a disk of rocks and pebbles formed around the sun, and they started fusing, impacting one another, and fusing together to form the planets. But this creates a problem. If all the planets formed from the same disk and grew together at the same time, how come they ended up being so different from one another? Some of the differences between planets can be attributed to variables like how close they are to the sun. This explains, for example, why some planets could hold liquid water like Earth and maybe Mars, while others cannot because they are too cold. But it doesn't explain other things like the vast differences in size and composition. Some theories suggest solar winds blew away the lighter materials, allowing for the outer planets to have a different composition. Another study found a correlation between the calcium isotope and the size of the planets, suggesting planets grew at the same rate but then stopped growing at different times. How come? Boom. According to the developed model of macro objects, all chemical elements, compositions, rocks are produced by macro objects themselves as the result of UC particle self-annihilation. The diversity of all gravitationally rounded objects of solar system explained by their distance from the sun and the differences in their UCM cause mass, size, composition. UCM reactors inside of them in hydrostatic equilibrium provide sufficient energy for all geological processes on planets and satellites. Do Jupiter and Saturn even have a core? When we have lived only on one planet, it is hard to imagine how a different one might be so different and weird, and in the case of Jupiter, Saturn, and others, so not solid. While these two gems of our solar system look just like a planet, they are mostly just gas as far as we can tell. If you were to take a guess without knowing, it would be easy to think behind all those storms, clouds, and gas we see on top of those planets, there would be a surface we might be able to land on someday and explore. Well, there is not. If you were to drop something on Jupiter, it wouldn't hit the surface. It would just drop down into the center of the planet until it was crushed by the pressure. Scientists believe both planets might have a core with a thin, rocky, or icy layer in the middle because it fits with our current model of how planets are formed. The problem is we have never actually seen or confirmed such core exist, and data found by the Juno spacecraft on Jupiter left us with more questions than answers, as it suggests Jupiter's core might be dissolved. in whom all planets, including Jupiter and Saturn, have UC meta cos. Why does Pluto have mountains? The dwarf planet Pluto has some of the most unique features of any other object in solar system. It has huge mountains made among almost entirely out of ice. The question that puzzles scientists is where did they come from? For a mountain to be created, there needs to be geological activity. That means tectonic plates moving because of volcanic activity or some other form of heat release. And that's where the big mystery lies. Where are the heat and energy coming from? As far as we can tell, Pluto is too far away from the Sun to receive much energy from it, and its core is just ice and rocks, so there is no lava flowing. One theory suggests Pluto might have some sort of system of cryovolcanoes, which are basically volcanoes that spit water or gases. But there really still remains a question to be answered. Reality still remains a question to be answered. Whom Pluto have mountains due to the volcanic activity of USM reactor inside of it. How big is the solar system really? As we mentioned above, when we talked about the Oort cloud, we still don't know much about the outer edges of solar system. So much we don't even know where it ends. Some astronomers mark the end of solar system as the heliopause, the imaginary line where the solar winds stop. That would make solar system about 79 astronomical units wide in diameter. But the Oort cloud would be located way beyond that. If we take the Oort cloud as the line for the solar system end, it is estimated it could be up to 200,000 astronomical units away, or a little more than 3 light years. Whom, according to whom, the radius of solar system is about 96,000 astronomical units. That is in a good agreement with the size of the spherical outer Oort cloud, 100,000 astronomical units. It was created as a result of volcanic rotational fission of the overspinning UCM cores of giant planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which are in fact failed stars and have significantly different inclinations and axial tilts. All long-period nearly isotropic comets have very large orbits and appear from every direction in the sky. Julian Stone made the following conclusion. As you can tell from our list, there are still many questions about our solar system that need to be answered. We only picked the most interesting ones for this list, but there are many more that did make the cut, like the crater shaped like a spider in Mercury, or why is Titan the only moon with an atmosphere? With all the advances in equipment and new techniques, we will hopefully get some answers to a lot of these questions in the coming decades, so to stay tuned and keep learning. Maybe you will be the one who figures them out. I'm absolutely agree with Ellen. We have not so much know about our own solar system we live in. Explain problems of solar system. Wurm solves a number of physical problems in contemporary cosmology and astrophysics through UC particles and their interactions. Coronal heating problem relates to a question of why the temperature of the solar corona is millions of degrees higher than that of the photosphere. According to whom, the origin of the solar corona plasma particle is not coronal heating. Plasma particles, electrons, protons, multi-charged ions are so far apart that plasma temperature in the usual sense is not very meaningful. Plasma is the result of the self-annihilation of UC particles. The solar corona, made up of UC particles, resembles a honeycomb filled with plasma. Cores of Sun and Earth rotate faster than their surfaces, despite high viscosity of the internal medium. Bohm explains the phenomenon through absorption of UC particles by cores. UC particles supply not only additional mass proportional to tau in power 1.5, but also additional angular momentum proportional to tau squared. Cores irradiate products of self-annihilation, which carry away excessive angular momentum. Solar wind is the result of this mechanism. Internal heating of gravitationally rounded objects in solar system is explained by UCM reactors inside of all macro objects, fueled by UC particles. Internal heating is due to UC particle self-annihilation. Diversity of gravitationally rounded objects in solar system is explained by UC reactors inside of macro objects fueled by UC particles. All chemical elements, compositions, radiations are produced by macro objects themselves as the result of UC particles self-annihilation in their different UCM cores. Plutonium-244, with half-life of 80 million years, exists in nature. It is not produced by the nuclear fuel cycle because it needs very high neutron flux environments. Any Pluto-244 present in the Earth's crust should have decayed by now. In whom all chemical products of the Earth, including isotopes, are produced within the Earth as the result of USF1 self-annihilation. They arrive in the crust of the Earth due to the convection currents in the mantle carrying heat and isotopes from the interior to the planet's surface. Expanding Earth. Hypothesis asserts that the position and relative movement of continents is at least partially due to the volume of Earth increasing, in whom the Earth's USM core absorbs new UC particles and its size is increasing in time proportional to root square of tau. Hence, there is an expansion of UCM core and its surface, the upper mantle with crust, is likewise expanding. Due to UC particle self-annihilation, new chemical elements are created inside of the upper mantle with crust. As the result, the relative movement of continents is happening. Faint young sun paradox describes the apparent contradiction between observations of liquid water early in Earth's history and the astrophysical expectation that the sun's output would be only 70% as intense during that epoch as it is during the modern epoch. In whom all macro objects of the world were fainter in the past. As their cores absorb new UC particles, the sizes of macro objects and thus their luminosity are increasing in time proportional to tau. Considering the age of the world, 14.2 billion years, and age of solar system, about 4.7 billion years, it is easy to find that a young sun's output was only 67.6% of what is today. Solar corona, geocorona, and planetary coronas made up of UC particles resemble honeycombs filled with plasma particles, electrons, protons, multi-charge ions, which are the result of UC particles self-annihilation. Conclusion. The world consists of two different kinds of matter, UCMN, 92.8%, with self-annihilating UC particles, and ordinary matter, 7.2%, that is in fact electromagnetic matter with particles, protons, electrons, photons, and neutrinos. They have different origin of radiations. Electromagnetic waves from radio waves up to X-rays are emitted by electrons outside nuclei. Gamma rays are emitted by nuclei, as it is the case for self-annihilating UC particles. Majorana fermions, long theorized particles that are their own antiparticles, were hypotized by Ettore Majorana in 1937. Scientists have yet to detect these self-annihilating particles inside particle accelerators. In our opinion, proposed by whom UC particles confirm this prediction. It is worth noting that in the same year, Paul Dirac foresaw the future of physics in a new cosmology. Considering GWST discoveries, successes of whom, and 86 years of Dirac's proposals, it is high time to make a paradigm shift for cosmology and classical physics. Astronomers have got achievements in investigations of the solar system that became an experimental laboratory for astrophysicists to check their theories. We are at the beginning of the new era of astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics. Young physicists should be a part of it. They should concentrate their efforts on the development of a new cosmology and classical physics. I am very excited about the future of physics. Acknowledgements. I am always grateful to academician Prokhorov and Manenkov, whose influence on my scientific life has been decisive. I am eternally grateful to my scientific father, Paul Dirac, who was a genius and foresaw the future of physics in a new cosmology. I am forever grateful to Nikola Tesla, who was a genius. I am much obliged to Professor Korda for publishing my manuscripts in Journal of High Energy Physics, Gravitation, and Cosmology. I am grateful to Nick Percival and Harry Ricker for valuable comments and suggestions which have led to an overall improvement of the presentation. Special thanks to my son Ilya, who helped me clarify model and improve its understanding. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, cosmology, by its nature, is an absolutely huge topic. And I'm thankful for Vladimir, who has talked about all this new empirical data over the past several decades, as well as pointing out where the empirical data does not match accepted theory. And he's come up with proposing a new paradigm, and with just a few basic concepts like volcanic rotational fission, has explained a whole lot of this new empirical data that clashes with the old paradigm. So thank you very much, and this is like getting a college course or a postgraduate course in cosmology. So thank you, Professor Vladimir. I very much appreciate it.